Objective 3.5, to be able to divide polynomials. When we're working with our polynomials, again, we said we want to see what type we're working with, and so we've got a cubic and a linear. Again, you always want to scan your polynomials and see if any terms are missing. If so, you want to write them with a 0 as a placeholder. So if it's a cubic, I should see my cubic term, my quadratic term, my linear term, my constant term. So all of those terms are represented. Since I have my linear, I should see my linear and my constant. So all of those terms are represented. The next thing when we're dividing is to set up our divisor and our dividend. So here's our divisor, here's our dividend, and we're going to write them accordingly. At this point, you want to say to yourself, all right, well, if I'm starting with w, what would I have to multiply w by to have it be equal to 3w cubed? Well, I have 1w here. I need 3, so I need 2 more. So multiplying by w squared would help. Also, I have a leading coefficient of 1. I need a leading coefficient of 3. So I think I also need to multiply by 3. So if I multiply by 3w squared by my divisor, I would get my 3w cubed and my 9w squared. Again, when you're dividing, you do the multiplication by the divisor and then you subtract. So 3w to the third, or 3w cubed, minus 3w cubed is 0. So I'm going to cross those out. 7w squared minus 9w squared, that would be a negative 2w squared. I have 2 terms in my divisor. Right now I have 1 that I'm working here underneath my dividend, and so that means I'm going to have to bring down my second term to keep things balanced. So I need to bring down that negative 4w. And again, you repeat your processing. Okay, well, I'm starting with w. I need a negative 2w squared. What would I multiply by to make them balanced? Well, I have 1w here, I have 2 here, so I need another w. So w is part of the multiplier. Also, my leading coefficient here is 1. I need it to be negative 2, so I need to multiply by negative 2 to make that happen. So by going through and distributing my negative 2w to each term in my divisor, I would have negative 2w squared minus 6w. Again, when you're doing your division, you multiply to your divisor, and then we subtract our terms. So a negative 2w squared minus a negative 2w squared, well, that's going to make a 0. 4w minus a negative 6w, that will give me a 2w. And again, since I have 2 terms in my divisor, I need 2 terms to work with underneath my dividend, so I have to bring down that second term. Again, we repeat the process. I'm starting with w. What would I have to multiply that by to get 2w? I should multiply by 2. So if I take each term in my divisor and multiply by 2, I would have 2w plus 6. And again, at this point, after we multiply, we have to subtract. Well, 2w minus 2w, that would be a 0. 3 minus 6, that would end up being a negative 3. So I have 2 terms in divisor, only 1 here in my dividend. So I'm going to look to see if I have another term that I can bring down, and I don't. So right here, this says I have a remainder. So when I'm writing my quotient with my remainder, I have to make sure I'm writing the remainder over the divisor. So my quotient would be 3w squared minus 2w plus 2 minus 3 divided by w plus 3. Here's my remainder. Here's the quotient. And again, the remainder over the divisor.